Then shortly afterward, the bus was stolen from in front of my house, basically 2 weeks after purchasing it. All right, welcome. This is my 2007 E450. It's a Starlight Forest Hill body.
So Loren, what do you think is the most unique feature about your rig here?
Well, I think it's gotta be my bathtub. You know, I looked at a lot of other RV builds, and the one thing that seemed like wasted space was the bench. Either it's their batteries and their wiring, or it's just a bunch of boxes. So I figured, why not make it into something a little bit more functional? And so I built it into a bath and shower.
Now, what do you use for the cushion over there that you just tossed?
Oh, this is a bouldering pad, and it's 24-inch diameter, so it would fit right on the bench. That was part of the design plan, was to use the bouldering pad as a bench.
Oh, gotcha.
And then in here, we've got my shower, and basically locks into place here with this little slide. And it doesn't have curtains right now because mostly I just sit in there, but it's got hot and cold water. The surround is made of recycled redwood from an old Victorian in Sacramento. Like a lot of things, it's unfinished but totally functional. And yeah, I use this thing on the regular. With my water, I can take 3 showers in addition to drinking and cooking and washing. I have a 45-gallon water tank and a matching sized gray tank. It's really low pressure, so the water coming out just doesn't have enough oomph to kind of splash around.
Yeah.
So I just haven't had an issue with it. This is all sealed, so it's waterproof. And I do have curtains, but I just haven't put them up. I have a water heater outside. It's an 8-liter tankless propane water heater. It's my only propane appliance in the bus. Oh, my goal was to have 0 propane exhaust whatsoever in the rig. All right, so starting at the back here with my queen size bed, which was something I was not willing to sacrifice, was sleeping space. I share it with the dog, and she takes up a lot of space. It also, it's a little high. I will say that if I were to do things differently, I would drop it down 4 to 6 inches, just to make it a little easier to get up on here. I did make a little step here so that it's a little easier to hop up into bed. This is probably one of my other favorite parts of the bus, is this table, which is on a rotating arm, and it can be positioned anywhere, within its range. Nice. It's a spalted maple slab. I'm really into wood as a forestry ecologist, so this was a big part of it. And it's very functional. It becomes kitchen counter, desk, bedside table. So very useful.
And so I noticed a lot of the woodwork in here. So where did you find all this wood?
So this and this were from a reclaimed lumber yard. And basically they mill slabs from urban trees that were lost due to damage or disease. It's called Urban Wood Rescue, run by the Sacramento Tree Foundation. And I used to work for them, so I got an employee discount. And all of the wood, like this piece, even this handle, these are found or reclaimed pieces of wood. I really only purchased the framing lumber. So the 2x3s and 2x4s, and a piece of plywood for the bed. Everything else was Facebook Marketplace, reclaimed lumber yards like these cabinet doors, and basically everything that I could find reclaimed. That was the goal.
Now, was that because of a price or just the environment, or what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it's twofold. One, it's reducing waste, diverting from the waste stream and creating something new. And also, my budget was designed around getting quality appliances and inexpensive wood, and basically build the structure of this thing with cheap parts, and then have nice things like my Nature's Head toilet, which was not cheap, but is extremely functional and never smells, which is awesome. And this gigantic fridge freezer. These, like my electrical system, were expensive. And I would rather spend money on quality appliances that are efficient than tons and tons of plywood, which is what you see a lot of builds made out of. So I purchased this bus in October of last year, and for $6,200, and started the build then. During the initial phases, when I was starting to do the demo and also accumulate supplies, so I was on Facebook Marketplace, finding piles of scrap like the redwood and the cedar and a lot of the 2x4s I found on the side of the road for free. Then shortly afterward, the bus was stolen from in front of my house, basically 2 weeks after purchasing it. It was all locked up, but they just, broke in and drove it off fairly easily. So cautionary tale to anybody buying one of these. It's fairly easy to steal. The police found it 24 hours later, minus a catalytic converter and all of my tools. Another cautionary tale, the moment you buy it, get RV insurance. Not regular car insurance, RV insurance. It's very affordable. After it was stolen, I called them up and said, hey, I lost all of my belongings, and they paid me out. And I was able to, take that money and rebuy what I had lost. So that is super important.
So how much do you think you spent, all told, do you think you spent with the shuttle and everything like that?
$22,000. So
Okay.
I took out a personal loan, purchased a bus, and started basically shopping for supplies online. So here's the kitchen. In retrospect, I would like the counter to be probably another 6 inches longer, but it works fine the way it is. Everything in the kitchen is run off my 120 system and the inverter. So I've got a water boiler, which is pretty efficient, and this induction range, both run off of my inverter, which is a 2000 watt inverter, and it does just fine. And I didn't want to have a propane stove in here. I didn't want to have to build it in. I wanted something that I could sit right on top that's super light and small, and this packs up super easy when I'm ready to move. And it's also really easy to clean. So that's definitely a benefit of this type of unit, and they're also really cheap. Yeah, so I built a electrical system with 400 amp hours of lithium ion storage, so two 200 amp hour batteries, an inverter. On the roof, I have 275 watt solar panels. I have a charger for that runs off the alternator, one off the solar, and another 30 amp plug in the outside if I'm plugged into an RV park or at a friend's house and I need to charge up. The other thing I love about this kitchen is this massive sink.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's huge. It's a catch-all, for everything. This cutting board slides into place there, so it's basically, like a little bit of extra counter. Under here I have a drying rack that is also not designed, but it works to fit over top here. So I just dry everything straight down into the sink. And then store everything on these magnets. Another hack, Harbor Freight, $3 maybe for each one of these magnets, and that probably won't stay put, but everything else will when I drive.
Wow, so you have your plates and everything up there. That's
yeah, bowls,
excellent.
plates, everything, and so I just have one of everything for me. I have additional stuff underneath, but this is what I use on the regular, and only having one of each out, it forces me to wash it. So I got this cool sagebrush handle. I just found it like this. I just cut it, sanded it, and put it into place. I used a lot of reclaimed hardware, so a lot of the kitchen hardware, these locks that hold the this in place, this little tab, they're all like window hardware. And this piece as well, you just tighten that up and it stays put, and it allows me to take something out and set it there. Most of my storage is in these bins. So I pull the bin out, sort through it, and then slide it back in. I also have a safe in there, which I recommend everybody gets. And bolt it down just for anything that you don't want. I mean, this thing is made of glass. If they want in, they can get in.
And what size is your refrigerator? That's
it's a 75 liter. Yeah, so it has a fridge and freezer combo, but the nice thing about it is that I can turn one off. If I've eaten my food and I can consolidate, I'll turn it off and save electricity. Or if I go shopping and I buy a lot of stuff for 2 weeks of boondocking, I can freeze it.
Oh, that's cool.
So I find that even a smaller one would be fine as long as it has 2 bays. The functionality is just incredible to have the adjustability there. All right, so I want to talk about my little wood stove. This is a Woodsman Mini. I actually got it secondhand off Facebook Marketplace, which was crazy because it's exactly what I was looking for. It's essentially just shy of a cubic foot, which means you're gonna have to cut some tiny logs, which I'll just have to show you because it's pretty funny. This is a log for my stove.
That's cute.
It's like a little baby.
How do you cut all that stuff? What do you use to cut it?
Yeah, I just have a hatchet and a handsaw, and I just cut branches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, branches are big enough, like a sizable branch off a pine or something. And if I'm going to bed and I stuff 3 or 4 of these in here, it'll go to 2 a.m.
That's great.
Keep it warm. Just have to choke it. I've got a little, heat-powered fan on here, and that blows air over towards my bed just fine. The surround is just some old roofing material, some plates of roofing steel that fell off in a storm that I found. I just cut them up and repurposed those. The reason I went with wood is, one, fuel is free and everywhere because I boondock all the time. And also it produces completely dry heat.
Yeah.
So propane heat, regardless of how you exhaust it, is going to put moisture into the air of your rig. And the last thing I want is a ton of condensation. So this is where I keep my electrical. So here's my closet, which is a sizable closet. And if I slide everything out of the way here, you can see some of my electrical here. Behind this dresser are two 400 amp hour batteries, an inverter, every possible fuse and breaker, and everything that you could ever recommend for one of these. This is built to spec. I have an electrician friend that checked it, so I'm comfortable. I also put a fireball in there, which is a really cool product. It's just a little, like, basically if it gets exposed to heat, it'll put a bunch of powder out and explode, and is rated for electrical fire. So
was that expensive? No,
it's like $17 on Amazon. You also see I have a little Simply Safe right here. So I do have a security system in here. Runs off the 12 volt, so those big batteries will run that security system until the end of time. Basically, I have my little dial here, you know, to check in and out. All the doors and windows have sensors. And I have a glass break sensor and a motion sensor. So after getting my rig stolen, I was like, okay, this is obviously an investment that I need to do. I also have a wireless router. So this is a cellular enabled router. Also runs off the 12 volt, runs full time. And it gets better service than my cell phone, and I have Wi-Fi just about everywhere I go. So I work for Skylight Forestry, which is a contractor for the U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE. And I work as a field ecologist doing forestry surveys. Basically, my job takes me to GPS coordinates all over the state of California. I park nearby kind of a cluster of them and then deploy my motorcycle from there to visit the plots. So this is like my rolling office, you know, home base.
So what inspired you to hit the road? Like, what gave you the idea, like, oh, I want to be out there doing this?
Yeah, well, I'll say rent. I had been living in Sacramento for the past 6 years. Even having an affordable apartment, I wasn't able to save aggressively. As much as I love this lifestyle, it's also a financial decision. I plan to live in here for 5 years, which should be enough time to save up money for a down payment on property where I can park this. So it's a budget, it's a lifestyle, it's also just kind of shedding the shackles of society, I would say. The freedom, it's awe-inspiring. It's going to change you and make you look at the world differently. So if you're thinking about it, go for it. There's no waiting. So one of the coolest things about the outside of this rig is my garage. So I've got an absolute ton of storage in here. This is still all my tools for finishing the build. All my gear fits under there. Still got a ton of space, vertical space. I thought about adding drawers. I thought about adding all sorts of stuff and just left it open because it gives you more options. Yeah, so this is my fuel efficient mode of travel. I did build this deck onto here, which extends it to 27 total feet, which is pretty long. I don't have a backup camera, but I'm used to driving bigger rigs, so this is normal for me. And I just ride it up these folding ramps when I'm not using it, and it gets me just about everywhere.
Loren, thank you so much for giving us a tour of your awesome shuttle bus. That was so cool. Thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure.
Now, if people wanted to follow along on your adventures, how can they get a hold of you?
They can find me on Instagram. My handle is o'rourke.loren.
People out there, you can check out his information on Instagram, and you can find out what his adventures are and a little bit more about your build and so forth.
That'd be awesome.
Folks out there, what did you think of the build? What was your favorite part? Did you incorporate any of these things in your build, or do you think you might in the future? Let us know in the comments below. If you got anything out of today's video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up, share it with friends, like it, and until next time, we'll see you down the road. So long, guys.